Hi and welcome to this week's video. In this week's video, really start to get into making up the form press for hydroforming the front cover plate to cover up the intake for the oil cooler air and to cover up the oil pump and ancillary components which fit to that. So hopefully you'll join me and we'll see how we get on, shall we? Come on then. Well, here we go, continuing on from the last video, drawn a centre line. This bit up here is just over 2 inches, it's 2¼ inches up. That's to allow for a round over here and to give me my 2 inches by sort of 5 inches hole for the oil cooler air, going pretty much in line with the Sonics bit there. It sort of says intake 2½ inches by 5 inches wide. That's got rounded ends on it, so I can afford to round things up a little bit. So although it'll be rectangular inside, so I'll show a little bit more area, but there'll be a strip going across in front, midpoint, and at the top of it, I should think, if I've got my calculations roughly right for how many strips I'm going to put across this to make it so it's not just a gaping hole. So this line here is effectively the top of the oil cooler line. This will be rounded. I've chamfered it in each side a section. I'm now going to sort out rounding the corners to give the footprint, and then I'll route around the edges here to start off with, even though this will be cut back quite dramatically going across there like that. To I'm also going to cut this section back to make it parallel with that to there. I think that'll look quite nice. I think it'll give it a bit more shape rather than just being a sort of box chucked on the front. So imagine, sort of angles we've got going on there. I don't want that protruding too far, so it's literally going to be going to whatever I use as a round off bit here. That will be the extent of the top, and then we'll end up with a nice serpentine curve going to the top mounting flange and go all the way around. Hey ho, I'll just find out what cutter I think I'm going to use for cutting the holes in the female boards, and from there it'll allow me to work out what I'm going to use as a radius here. There we go, radius all the way around. I've got this 35mm cutter, 1 3/8, but 35mm, so that's what's going to cut the female side. So I've made this 33mm diameter, or as it would be, or 16.5mm radius, going around the corners here. That way it allows me for 1mm of metal. And I'm not going to be using anything thicker than that. This is a fairing, it's not something structural, so I want to try and make it light, but I need it to be thick enough to have enough metal to stretch quite a way down here. So there'll be a fair chunk of stretching needed. So we'll see how we get on. Well, there's the edges rounded over. So this will be probably cut back and it'll need to be re-rounded because we'll lose some of that. But that's the basics. I can now start marking out where I'm going to drill and slot, well, drill this little lot Well, here we are. I've got all the ends of all the slots marked up in respect to the rounded over edge. It's been done, so I can create slots going across, but you can sort of see I've drawn a line and a line sort of going down the centre. This whole section here will be cut out after I've done the initial form on my sort of press and battering system to create the basic shape. So once I'm happy with that and I'm getting that to fit the aircraft, once I I think it's a good fit, then I will round the edges of these on all these holes with the router, similar to the way I've done this but with a smaller radius, and I'll put some supports in. We'll make up the sort of vents. They're not louvers because they're not twists, they're going to be bent back, and they'll be narrower than the gaps are between the holes, and so they'll narrow down and then swell up to the end. I have to try and keep the stress as limited as possible at each end to try and stop them from vibrating and cracking. But I'll show you that bit of process when I get to it. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to measure angles on the aircraft and work out what slope I'm going to cut down there. Well, there are the angles set up on the side. I use the Clino to get what the angle of the front face was there compared to vertical, and depending on where you were on the whole setup, it was between 15 and 20 degrees. I've gone for 15 degrees, so hopefully it'll work to there, because if it went 20 degrees I need to make this even thicker. So if the angle's a little bit too fine, it's just going to bring that in a little bit more at the bottom, which I think will look better. So I've now got to cut that off and that off, which I'll do with a standard handsaw. There we are. There's a scrap piece. It did start to wander, but managed to cut and come back. So that's a scrap piece. No issues on the final item there. As you can sort of see, there's a little bit of a step and there's some excess material. This will have to be drawn back down to the right height. I'll probably do that. Start off with a flapper wheel on the angle grinder to take out a chunk of the centre. It doesn't have to be perfectly flat, and then a belt sander to flatten out the rest. But so it doesn't sit level at the moment, but there we go. It's took about an hour and a half sawing away with your standard saw, and yeah, I've probably got another half hour's worth of work when it comes to cut off that piece there, and I'd say that it's about half an hour to an hour's work going to be flattening out the two sections to get them right. But there we go. Yeah, it's coming along. It doesn't make any difference whether I'm doing this in metal or whether I was doing it in composite material. This section here would be the same to make up a plug for a mould, or in this case a form butt for aluminium. Here I am after much sanding. I've got a flat face there. I've got a flat face on this side. I've rounded this here. I had to do this by hand because I do the sides with the router, but I've had to do this by hand. And I've put a slight rounding on here, although all this is going to be cut out, so it's not super critical. So we're now ready to start making the plate that this is going to go through for forming the aluminium. We'll see how we get on. Anyhow, about an hour and a half's worth of cutting and sanding, and an awful lot of dust. In point of fact, empty the vacuum cleaner now 3 times. Okay, so I'm using some, I suppose it's nearly 3/4 inch plywood, but you can tell if you look at this, it's not aircraft grade plywood by any stretch of the imagination. It's got voids, overlaps, goodness knows what's going on there, big wave in it, so with an overlap a bit. So this is basically what I would normally term shuttering ply. You know, the sort of thing used for making up forms for pouring concrete against. But this will do. We're effectively have this. Let's see what I can show you what I'm up to. I'm going to lay this down. I want to have an area going around it of about 1.5 inches, 2 inches or so. And I'll cut a rectangle out of this times 2. Then I'll put this on and I'll mark around the edge of it. I will then bore the bits into the corners and cut out with a jigsaw so that this can sort of slip through. On one of these I will go around the edge with the router, roughly the same radius as this, and that will allow my aluminium sheet to have like a nice sort of serpentine joggle or radius edge around here to the flange, and I can then just cut pieces of aluminium the same size as the rectangle supply, and they'll be screwed together, sandwiching that piece of aluminium, which will be annealed. The bit that's cut out from the centre of one of these would be put on the top of this, just temporarily screwed on there, and between hammering and various other bits I can form that so it's flat with the top, and that should give me the form. I'll do 2 of those just in case I mess up with the next stage, which is going to be having the rounded sort of flute sections going between these points here, which will require cutting this out and routing it. Well, nearly ready to go. Here's the form plate with the round over on there to allow for the flange to have a curve going onto the buck, which would push through it. The top plate here, this top plate will sandwich a piece of annealed aluminium. This buck will go through, and probably have one of these pieces of the ply that's cut out to push it through until the ply here is level with this piece of ply. It'll tell me then that I've got it formed to the right shape, and well, there we go really. We'll come to a little bit of a standstill as it's the end of the week, so we've still got a chunk more to do, but what I will be doing in the next video is hopefully getting to produce at least the first couple of pressings out of this before I chop out all this little lot to make it able to be used as a buck, a dressing buck, to put all the other little pieces into the front plate. We'll see how it all comes out then. Well, that's it for this week. Might not appear to be a great deal but this prep work will allow me to go forward and do a chunk of work. Still a lot to do though to make up what effectively is just a little cover for the front. Quite a time consuming. If I could buy one off the shelf to fit, it would probably save me ages. But this is a one-off aircraft, as they all are when you build your own. It's part of the fun of it. And a bit of fun playing with metal for me. So catch you next one. Look after yourselves and keep fit.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the thumbs up. You can subscribe or even hit the little bell notification for future videos. Any comments would be appreciated and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. Remember, go fly and feel the sky.